Hey guys, what's going on? Today is your stream. Today we're going to be talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. Now, this is going to be special because I didn't come prepared. My plan is literally to only talk about subjects that are from the chat. So if you're here live, let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll have a conversation about it. We'll see how this model works out. So the first thing, SuperLeaf64 mentions: are there any tutorials how to fit a CRT into a Wave 3 arcade 1-up? I've seen a couple successful mods, but little information given. Now, personally, I've not done this type of mod myself. I've heard about it. I can't really offer any expert advice. I'm guessing you're going to want to find a CRT that will fit the dimensions first. Obviously, you can't put like a 32-inch CRT in there. So maybe a 19-inch is going to work. Maybe that's going to be too heavy. You're going to want to reinforce it in such a way, obviously you're not going to mount it to a weak point of the unit. You're going to want to put maybe extra wood inside there that's going long ways and then mount it in there. It's going to be a tough one because I don't know, the arcade 1-up was not really never made or intended to be able to hold CRT in it. I'm sure it can be done. Be safe. I know that you're probably going to have to take apart the monitor, the plastic case. Keep in mind that even if the television is not plugged in, it still holds thousands of volts inside the actual system. If you drop it, you can vent it, you could crack it, you're going to ruin your CRT, and you could die. Well, you probably wouldn't die, but it's a serious thing dealing with a CRT. The back of the volts, even if it's not been plugged in for a long time, it can still hold that charge. So be very careful. Do a lot of research. I would recommend first learning everything you can about CRTs and working with them, without a case. If you're using a TV, for example, and then taking the case off. So things I've heard is like always having your hand, like your left hand, in your back pocket. That way you could never hold it, hold the back of the CRT with two hands. There's a whole bunch more into it. I'm not an expert at it, but I can tell you and give you the little bit of advice that be very careful. Let's see. What is this? Mike? He's saying we want the show. Chance? Okay. Let's see. Is it worth buying an arcade 1-up cabinet not made by Code Mystics, such as, I think it means TMNT? Well, when it comes to arcade 1-up, it's really about the title. And if that title is something that's really interesting to you, that you would love to play, I would imagine that if you would, never played video games growing up, and video games are brand new to you for some reason, I don't know why you'd buy an arcade 1-up. One of the biggest appeals is, as us in the 30, 40, 50, 60-year range have memories of playing these original arcades, and the throwbacks, to our childhood. And we get to experience those with our friends and family or with our children. I think that's a big appeal to the arcade 1-up. The actual software that's inside it, there's plenty of arcade 1-ups that are fantastic that Code Mystics had no involvement with. TMNT was a great one. There's not a lot of menu options in there, but that doesn't make it bad. The emulation on it is fine. I'm guessing the emulation is done by Arcade 1-up Hong Kong. I could be wrong. Maybe they use Digital Eclipse. There's actually, here's the other thing. Some of the great people behind a lot of the emulation that's used in Arcade 1-up are freelance contractors that work for various companies, including Code Mystics. And there's a couple of them that, couple companies in Canada, they'll get a contract to do some type of, retro restoration or whatever the project is. And they'll use contractors, and some of those contractors kind of have contracts with multiple companies. Code Mystics with Arcade 1-up repeatedly has in-game menu options. Their emulation is not perfect. I didn't really like their CRT filter on, for example, Star Wars Return of the Jedi. It had some really weird patterns in the CRT filter that again, like I said on my video about Star Wars, like it looks like burn-in, and everyone's like, "You're an idiot. It's not burn-in. It's the scan lines." I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to express to you that I'm familiar with scanline emulation, what it's trying to do, and that Return of the Jedi looks funny. Like it doesn't even look like a CRT. It doesn't even look like a CRT filter that you would find on emulators. It's got this weird distortion pattern in it that's not consistent. It blooms in weird areas, as if there's letters you can kind of read inside the patterns. That was my only complaint about anything that's ever happened by Code Mystics. Everything else is really great. Attention to detail, they're really good. Okay, let's see what other topics we got. Dreamcast Kyle says, seen a lot of channels covering this. Collector first or gamer? So for me, I guess I'm not a gamer. I don't play enough games or have knowledge about the games to consider myself a gamer. I'm not particularly very good at beating, especially modern games. I'm not a very good collector. My desire for games has always been electronics. My very first Nintendo that I ever got was broken, and I had to repair it. And I also got to play games on it. But then I found myself wanting to mod it. So at 7 or 8 years old, I went to Radio Shack and bought parts that allowed me to like reset the game on the controller. So on the back of my controller, I had a button that would wire, and actually I spliced the DC connector and ran an additional wire all the way to the unit and zip tied it to allow me to do a reset. And I didn't even use the feature very much. I just thought it was really cool that you could do that. So I'd play a game, want to start the game over, and I'd press my reset button. Then I told my friends about it and asked if they wanted a feature like that. And I think I did it for one other person. That's about it. So maybe collector, maybe. But when it comes to Arcade 1-Up, obviously it's a big topic of this channel. I've been interested in buying their units mainly because I want to see how the electronics on the inside grow. I don't play them a lot, actually. When I had a lot of friends and family come over, we did play it a lot. Every 2 weeks or something, people would come over and hang out a lot. And my daughter would play it a lot. But recently we've been playing a lot of Switch. The pinball we do play. That's a lot of fun. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Other topics of discussion. Yeah, I think Lewis is talking about you'd have to build a frame to hold it up. I think he's talking about the question about the CRT. If you were going to put a CRT in an Arcade 1-Up, how would you do it? Yeah, you're going to have to build some type of frame to hold it. I would say kind of look at how arcades do it, kind of get inspiration from that. Ask in the various communities on Facebook if someone else has done it. See if they can provide pictures to give you good influence and ideas. And of course, always when playing with CRTs, have the utmost amount of caution. Even if it's not plugged in, it's holding a lot of power. You may want to learn how to discharge it. So look into that. Also, be very careful with that. Let's see. Does anyone know if the Countercade Gen 2 monitors will fit back in the Countercade horizontally? I'm thinking of getting some use out of the Galaga Countercade I picked up last week. It's a good question. Anyone in the chat know? I haven't tried it. I don't know. I've kind of thought of that too. I haven't tried to turn it, but I don't know. I haven't measured, but that's a good question. I know that DIY RetroRGB is putting together a lot of mods for the Countercades. The most popular one I think right nowadays promoting is putting a 16:1 inside the Countercade, but the 16:1 is vertical, so that's not going to change its orientation. David's comment is, I hate cabinets. I hate the cabinets are made out of particle board. So I've talked to a couple of people about that, and some say there's good and bad to the type of wood that's being used on the Arcade 1-Up or the Legends at mass production. In some ways, the board that it's used is better than real arcades. One of the reasons why, if you have a real arcade, and it gets wet in any way, it'll chip and chunks of it will come off. That's just the type of woods that are on the original arcades. Now, of course, the original arcades had thicker wood, but it is a different type of wood. And so I think this came from Sabos. I think he's said it in some of his interviews, but I was on the phone with him and he was telling me about it. I think he was saying if, for example, the techniques used for the mass production of the Arcade 1-Up and the AtGames Legends Ultimate, if they were used in the commercial arcades, it would be even better, than the arcades. So it's kind of like the best would be a mixture of both. So you'd have thicker wood, but you would have this compressed wood. I'm not an expert. I'm just repeating what someone else said, and I might be doing a bad job repeating it. Let's see. So Michael B says there's actually a company on my island, Newfoundland, called the Other Ocean that worked on Burger Time. That's right. Other Ocean is another one of those companies. And I think a lot of them have various people that have worked there that have also worked at the British Columbia. What is it? The British Columbia is the... we were just talking about Code Mystics. And then some of those people worked on... it's Digital Eclipse, which did like the Street Fighter 2 version of the Arcade 1-Up, which Digital Eclipse is a company that's been around since the 90s. So I don't have it all mapped out, but I did some searching on the internet, and it seemed like Digital Eclipse was a company that had been around for a long time, since the 90s, and then some of those people branched off and kind of made those other companies. I think they're all like related in some sort of way. I could be wrong, but that's what I read. Let's see. JJ says, is it licensing restrictions that we don't have a Robotron, Donkey Kong, Tron, Qbert, Zaxxon, etc. cabs? So I think in Donkey Kong, that's going to be a Nintendo license. And if you guys were following what John D was talking about, his goal, I think it's his life goal. Like it's his goal as, someone in the industry. He wants to be the one that gets the Nintendo license. And so he has a plan to do that. And it's his roadmap. And Donkey Kong and, whatever Nintendo could produce is on that. And I think his plan is to release different cabinets and different titles that will extend the reach of Arcade 1-Up to make them more known in the industry, more popular, not only as a primary license holder of products, but also sub-licensing. That means John D has the ability to get license from various companies to work together so they can kind of modernize these licenses so they can be used in home arcade. And then John D has the ability now, because he's got those contracts and people to work together, to restore a ROM to the to commercial value. Like they can't just like take some of the games and the ROMs as they were and then just sell them. There's some issues, legal issues. And so he has the ability, and he has done this, worked out those legal issues with various companies, put together a new licensing royalty plan, and he could even sub-license that to other companies. So I think he's trying to grow the business to the point where he can get Donkey Kong. Now, I think Tron, they could totally do. Some of the people just don't want to do it. And that's really weird. So Arcade 1-Up, they're trying to, look into the industry and look at the posts and feedback from the community of what titles would sell. And so they're trying to build that roadmap in a way where they can just kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a lot of these smaller titles like your Zaxxon or Qbert that I just think, although a lot of people would love, it won't get them Nintendo. Think about it. Like if you have a goal in life, I talked to this with Ralph, and we even talked about this with 1-Up Weekly. Like I was proposing to just get rid of 1-Up Weekly and we would just cancel it. And the reason why is because Ralph had all these aspirations that he was talking to me about. He's like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I was like, we should stop doing 1-Up Weekly, because 1-Up Weekly doesn't fit in any of that. Just cut it. You just need to remove it from your life. And he goes, no, but I really enjoy it. And I'm like, okay, well, if your goals are to enjoy life and to do things, and you want to reach those goals, then it makes sense, right? Anyway, so coming back to the licensing thing, I think really John D's goal really is, I think he really does want to be able to say, we got Nintendo. And then if there's anything that's not a part of that plan to eventually get there, they're just, he personally is probably not going to want to do it. I don't know. I'm probably putting words in his mouth, but that's my viewpoint. That's my reading between the lines, I guess. So Scott's saying he's a tinkerer. It kills the time. Yeah, I'm into that, definitely. It's kind of funny. Like once I've done a mod of a certain type, I usually won't repeat it, unless, and this has been the case, with the high def NES, I bought about 50 of those for the sole purpose of flipping them. Buying Nintendos, and it's because I wanted to go through the journey of, the exercise, and it took me about 2 years, and it was a lot of fun. I still haven't completed it. It's almost like I have like 5 left or so that I almost don't want to complete, because then that's the end of the chapter of my life. But I think I'm going to finish soon. But basically, I would go, and I would, for years, a couple of years, I would try to find really good deals on consoles, refurbish them, replace the capacitors, clean them all up, put in the HDMI part on the NES, and then use it for a week or two, play with it, test different games. I got really good at Mario. I was like speed running Mario for a while there, and then I would sell it. And that was the first time that I did a mod over and over and over again. But usually it's like I'll do a mod, learn from the mod, and move on. And there's a whole bunch of arcade one-up mods that I've done as well, but I can't release them because they would get really mad. Like side-loading games and stuff like that. I think it would be... There's probably people in the community who are like, what, you're holding back? I'm like, whatever. Like, I think Arcade 1-Up has a plan, and if they wanted to be able to side-load games on their units, they would release firmware so you could do that. So who am I to be the one to release software that allows people to do that? I'd probably get in trouble for doing something like that. Let's see. Nick is saying he's a gamer where he can play for 5 minutes, and then my kids ask if they can play. Yep, I still buy them. Yeah, I think some of these old games are a lot of fun. You can play for just a few minutes and then move on. It's one of the joys of some of these arcade games. I mean, when I was a kid and I put a quarter in an arcade, I probably only get to play that game for about 5 minutes because I would die. And then my mom, or at the mall or something, she's like, come on, honey, let's go. When I got a lot of the arcade one-up cabinets, I would beat some of them. Take about 30, 40 minutes to beat the game. Just keep putting coins in. I've done that several times with several of the units that I have. But a lot of them are just pick up and play for a while, turn it off, move on with my day. All right, so let's see if we got some other topics here. So if you're just joining me, what we're doing is just this is a complete live chat session, reading chat, talking about whatever subjects you want to talk about. I'll rant about a subject. You know who's going to get the Nintendo license? Nintendo. That's an interesting thought. I think it's possible. So here's the thing. Like, it's my understanding that Nintendo didn't even make the Nintendo Classic. See, there's other companies, it's their emulator, but I don't think they fulfilled it. They didn't just, they outsourced some of those things. And so, is it possible that there's a Nintendo cabinet that comes out that is simply going to be fulfilled by Arcade 1-Up? And Arcade 1-Up's logo may not even be on it. But when it comes out and we kind of get the sense that it's basically Arcade 1-Up, and maybe they'll have a contract with them and they can't even say they're a part of it. That's possible. I think that's possible. If they become the leaders in the industry of distributing and producing home arcade products, it's possible that a third party, a company that owns a license as big as Donkey Kong, could come along and say, sure, you do all the work, we get a buttload of the royalty, but it says Nintendo on it. And when it comes out, everyone will just see Nintendo came out with an arcade cabinet. And that's it. We wouldn't even know. Or there's a partnership, like full-on partnership where, we all know that it's Arcade 1-Up and has an Arcade 1-Up logo on it. But I still think that that's something that John wants to do because he said it. He said it on our show in private conversations that we had. He's like, I want to get it. I hope we can get it. We don't need it to survive, but I want to. that would be really cool. It'd be, it's like this unattainable thing that if he did it, he could say, I did that. I made that happen. So I like to support that idea. Like I've made videos about Nintendo before, and then people are like, never gonna happen. I'm like, you're basically crushing this dude's dream by saying that. Like, I don't know, throw some positivity in the world. Say like, maybe he could do it. If they keep growing and growing and growing, maybe they could do it. Again, like I said, Nintendo doesn't produce everything in-house 100%. It has their logo on it, but they outsource a lot of the work to different companies, and no one knows about it because it's like, it's not even in the terms and conditions that this other company built it, But the gaming industry is like that all the time. Even the industry that I'm in, we bring in contractors to help us, meet a goal. But the contractors don't get, any credits for building that, right? When a software company does that, it's the company that did it. But you get 10 people to join a team for 6 months to build out a product. It was the third-party company that built it. All right. So how many millions would Nintendo make if they released a Play Choice cabinet? Maybe that's the reason why it hasn't happened yet, because a royalty deal with Arcade 1-Up is going to be a percentage of, sales. And if you sign the contract today, Arcade 1-Up is going to sell X amount of units. But what if they're not at their peak for how many they can move in a single quarter? So a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they sell even more because they have more reach. They have more retailer distribution. So would you sign the deal with them now, or would you sign the deal with them 2-3 years from now? The company is going to make the most when they're going to move more cabinets. Just a thought. So Brad says Tron is on the ALU, and Glenn's Retro makes a Tron stick for it. The art of the original cab is great, though. Super Leaf says, isn't the arcade version of the first Donkey Kong owned by a third party? I forgot what the name of the company was, but they made Donkey Kong and Nintendo didn't buy the arcade rights. That's the story I've heard before. And I believe my understanding is like early on, and again, I might be repeating something that isn't true, but I think it's based on the same thing you're talking about, Super Leaf. But the story that I remember is early on in the software development lifecycle of various video games, companies like Nintendo or Sega didn't thoroughly understand how important it was to sign those contracts that says that, they'll maintain or they'll own those rights. So obviously Jumpman, which is a part of Donkey Kong, is Mario. And when Mario first came out, the whole game mechanic was, okay, let's take a character that people are familiar with, like Jumpman, and now we have the ability and power. We have the power to make the sprites larger with the NES. So the first thing that Mario will do is eat a mushroom, and then he'll be that larger sprite. So there's like this transition, and the first level of Mario is all about teaching you how to play the game and hitting challenges and discovering the controls. Anyway, back to Donkey Kong. This as the way I understand it, the way I heard it. Donkey Kong was made and fulfilled by a third-party company, and they actually are the ones that have the rights for Donkey Kong, which is weird. Maybe it's like they have the rights for the arcade version of the actual program, because obviously Donkey Kong is a brand that's owned by Nintendo. Is this company getting royalties for all of the Donkey Kong Country or, Tropical Freeze, all of those games? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. But at the same time, remember there was a lot of license complexity with Miss Pac-Man, and John D was able to make the right connections between, there's like 2 or 3 different companies, and get enough lawyers involved to be able to, reduce the risk. They found what is said to be a loophole where arcade 1-Ups don't have coin doors, working coin operated doors, and some of those earlier contracts allowed other people to get royalties because it was coin operated, and arcade 1-Up's like not coin operated. So it's been theorized that arcade 1-Up was able to get Miss Pac-Man because of this lawyers having more confidence that they could make an arrangement between Namco and some other companies, and maybe they had this upper hand by saying we'll be able to, I don't know, whatever, we'll be able to do it because of this reason or that reason. I think more importantly, the reason why Arcade 1-Up was able to get Miss Pac-Man is because a company like Namco and their partners that own parts of those royalties trusted Arcade 1-Up with that license and knew that they could move a lot of Miss Pac-Mans because they already demonstrated it with Pac-Man. My guess was 300,000 Pac-Man sold by 2019 or 2020. I mentioned that number on a 1-Up Weekly episode before, and John scoffed at me, implying that the number was actually higher than that. That it's possibly, at the time, they had sold 1 million cabinets, and Pac-Man represented more than a third of that. That was kind of the implications of that conversation. So you bring Miss Pac-Man in, how many are you going to sell? You're going to sell a lot. And this is the interesting thing about business. There can be a lot of naysayers, I think, about licenses of what could happen, what couldn't happen. But in the end, I think money speaks. There's a certain point of view where a company will basically be forced by the stockholders or whatever, the pressured to make arrangements that are, you're good. There's just a certain point that an analyst will come along and say the risk is so low and the money we'll make is so high that we need to sign this agreement, right? Otherwise, you're just leaving money on the table. Arcade 1-Up is clearly not at that point right now with that. Nintendo would be dumb to not sign an agreement with Arcade 1-Up. They're not there. But maybe they could be one day. That's kind of a cool thing. That if their company could grow so much and be so ubiquitous worldwide, like in the States, Canada, Australia, all these different places where people are like, man, you can buy these miniature versions of arcades with titles that I absolutely love, and they're just, retailers everybody's making money. I mean, at a certain point, like, if they keep growing, like, are they going to outsell, like, Nintendo Classics, Like, how many have they sold now? Is it 2 million? Is it 3 million? How many have they sold? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's going to burst soon. Maybe this entire Arcade 1-Up bubble is going to burst soon, and it's done. Like, hey, everyone's satisfied with the cabinets, and they've extended their reach to the end of it, and they're done. Or they've only scratched the surface. We'll see. Let's see. I think it's quality versus quantity thing with Nintendo. No matter how many Arcade 1-Ups sell, it won't matter to Nintendo if Arcade 1-Up has a reputation for poor quality control. Yeah, that's true. Like the NES Classic, I don't think anyone complained about that thing. It's just, I mean, the only complaints early on with the Nintendo Classic, as an example, was availability. Remember, they were sold out for so long and everybody wanted it. But once people got it, the unit worked really well and play games on it. And I think the customer service complaints were probably super low on that unit. That's my thought. I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. Let's see. Let's see if there's... Scott says, sign the deal and set the release date. Gotta build the inventory first. This trickles inventory due to COVID is worse than just delay and stock up, than make the push. Yeah, I'm telling you, COVID. Obviously, it's a bad thing. But I'm really curious how much of 2020's operation and now into 2021 is due to the additional challenges that a company like Arcade 1-Up or AtGames, the additional pressure. I know a lot of those companies were in like Arcade 1-Up had an office in New York, and it changed their business so much that people started working from home, and they started, it became a Zoom company, and then Scott Backrat even like moved to Florida. Like he's essentially moved the business to Florida, which is like another risk on top of the company, right? You have a company that's growing, and then middle of a pandemic, you kind of, now everyone's kind of working distributedly. I mean, like, for example, the David McIntosh, like, he's one of their, I don't know, more important people in the company that does a lot of work that's super important. and he's from Canada, so I mean, he probably was already working remotely, my guess, and occasionally visiting the New York office. But sometimes pressure like that creates something whole new that they never would have had. I've definitely seen that in the various companies that I've been working with, the one I work for, and I was fortunate enough to switch jobs right before the pandemic hit. It would have been really tough if I was searching for a new job during it, and I'm definitely, heart goes out to those that are having challenges with it for sure. But at the same time, that added pressure, I'm just trying to silver lining, right? Not that COVID's amazing or anything, but silver lining. There's some companies that have benefited from that challenge because it put them in a situation they had to overcome those challenges, and people grow and learn through those challenges. And but the proof is in the pudding on this one. It appears there's been a lot of problems and delays with Arcade 1-Up recently, and I'm really curious to see how their new legacy line is going to be. I started seeing some people show pictures of like the Mortal Kombat. They have one on hand. I didn't order any one yet. Basically, I'm lazy to sell the other ones, and been looking for advice on how to get over this laziness. What do I just basically, I've run out of room, but I do like some of the new ones, and maybe I'd swap to them, but I'd need to resell some of the current ones that I have, and I'd give anyone a really good deal. Obviously, I bought these cabinets with all the money. It was my money. I've never received anything for free, but they have been a part of this YouTube channel, and there's a little bit of money that over time I've made a decent amount of money from YouTube from ad revenue. Of course, I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and I don't spend a lot of money when it comes to YouTube. So anyway, I would be willing to give someone a deal if it went to a good home. I'm not looking for a profit. I'm not even looking to make my money back. But anyway, I'm ranting on. I'm curious to see how they end up, the legacy cabinet, right? Are they going to be good, or has the COVID challenges and pressures caused them to miss things, right? Like they had to adapt to this new process, this new flow. And is that process and new flow going to cause certain things to slip, accidents to happen, mistakes being made? Maybe. Well, we're about to find out. I think overall the pinball is pretty good. I have one. There was some people complaining about some issues early on, but mass majority complaints that I've seen have been relatively low at this point. A lot of people just super happy. And I'm sorry, I'm missing some super chats. I just noticed. So we got movie night with Lady here, but here's your $2. Thanks, Stringer Films. Appreciate the donation. Jump to another one before these go out of scope here. Have you heard of the? I haven't heard of it, and I don't know how to pronounce it. The Aya Neo, the Project Indigo. Oh no, it's on Indiegogo. Is that what you're saying? I have not heard of that. The Aya Neo handheld console. Is that what it is? I typed into Google and it auto completed. A handheld console, a Switch style. Let's look at it real quick. I'm going to share my screen here and check it out real quick. So, Fire Stick Expert, by the way, if you have any needs for working with a Fire Stick, this guy's the expert, all right? So reach out to him if you need any help with it. Anyway, so the Aya Neo, a Nintendo Switch-style handheld gaming PC that promises to offer a full-fledged PC experience in the palm of your hands, is now available to back on Indiegogo, starting at $6,120. Oh, $789 US. That's interesting. It's a Windows handheld. That seems pretty expensive. So I'm going to click on this. Let's see what we come up with. So Indiegogo. So never heard of this before. My first reaction is no. But wow, 6 cores? Okay. All right. I was assuming that this thing would just be like, so I've seen some other handhelds. In fact, someone who makes other products in the home arcade has reached out to me that, here's a look at some of the products that we're also working on. And but it's priced similar to a Switch. And hopefully we'll be hearing more about that soon. But this one is different. Look, they've already reached 3,492% of their original goal of $54,000. So they've raised $1.8 million. And I think what their goal of this is to build like a handheld system that rivals like the Switch when it comes to horsepower. Am I wrong? It actually runs Windows on it. So anything that you can get running on a Windows PC is going to be able to run on this. And it's interesting. Even it looks like ETA Prime has talked about it. Look at the type of games that you're able to play on this thing. So, claiming to be able to play based on logos, Xbox, 3DS, PS3, Wii games. This is pretty spectacular, but I'm of course cautious. And $869. That's just for the low end. Like, I don't know. Like that might. That's a little above my my budget for a handheld. I'm not sure I'd be willing to invest that type of money on a DIY handheld. Maybe it's a great deal. Maybe they're mass producing, terabyte SSD in such a way where, it's going to be, more expensive. It's impossible for me to build a machine like that, just by buying parts. Maybe that's the advantage. They're mass producing this, it's all in the size of a Switch. And that's cool, though. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for the donation, and thanks for bringing that up. I'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to track that. Let's see. HobbyHands says, again, thanks for the heads up on the Galaga and the AtGames Legends Gamer Pro. Want to upgrade the buttons on 1UP. Your suggestion on an okay price. Now, when it comes to upgrading the buttons, I think I've done a video on this before. Again, I really like DIY RetroRRcade. You go to his website and you look at, for example, the 60-in-1. Now, the cheapest way to get a 60-in-1, so this is a PCB that's made by China. It's been out for years. It's basically got an all-winner SoC in it. It's like a single-core processor, but it has about 60 unlicensed, most popular retro games. The emulation is fair. It's not the greatest, but it's a very inexpensive way to be able to play 60 games. Now, the intent of the 60-in-1 was for arcade owners, and they could take these old Pac-Man Galaga machines, and the Pac-Man and Galaga machines use JAMA, which is just an edge connector with a whole bunch of wires on it that's got RGB, your CRT and your audio video, and then basically your control panel, right? Your buttons for the joystick and buttons. So all those units are already JAMA ready. And so if your arcade unit broke, you could buy the 60-in-1, and arcade owners would buy that. Well, they're still manufacturing the 60-in-1, but it's still basically the same technology as like 5 or 10 years ago, which is pretty decent, but it's just not amazing. But it was something that I bought because I wanted to experience kind of more of that arcade real experience. Like, imagine I was an arcade owner and I wanted to replace a broken arcade that I have with some other device, kind of like a Pandora's box, but 60-in-1 is another very popular one. So you go look at that price from AliExpress, various places you can get it directly from manufacturers and distributors in China. There's a certain price for that, right? I think it's like $30 or $40. But then you have to wait a really long time, and then there's some additional shipping, whatever. You go to DIY RetroRRcade, and he has many of them ready to go in stock, and he's in Texas. And you can order that, and you'll probably get it in about 2 days. And I've never had any issues with any of the things from DIY Retro Arcade. When it comes to buttons and joysticks, his Sanwa buttons or Sanwa sticks are like $1 or $2 more than what you could get from China last I checked. But the convenience of him having a really nice website where you just like add to cart this, I want this combination, I want that. He's got really good shipping prices because he's got a good U.S. Post office shipping calculator right on the site. It's not going to overcharge you for the shipping. I've gone to some dealers, you're like, I want a stick and some buttons, and they're like, that'll be $30 shipping. It's like the calculator that it comes from shipping just like says like, oh, if it's really light, I'll charge you like $5. But if it's got a extra weight to it, oh my God, it's $30, right? DIY Retro Arcade is not like that. Then you could always order these things from Amazon. But to me, Amazon's like this faceless, no customer service. But if it has free returns, I can go drop that off at Kohl's and not have to, I've done that recently. I bought things and I was like, oh, this new microphone, maybe I should try it out. Oh, I can buy it from Amazon. Oh, I didn't really like it. Okay, I just return it. Just drop it off at Kohl's and I'll get my money back like right away. So there's different options. Anyway, long story short, I like buying buttons from DIY Retro Arcade, and they're great for swapping out buttons in your Arcade 1-Ups. He makes it easy because he has an entire section about Arcade 1-Up, and you can say, this is the type of joystick I have, or you can kind of look at your unit and see the gen model, and he kind of caters to that crowd. And I like his site. Hope that helps. But yeah, like all the buttons that he has on his site will fit in an Arcade 1-Up or AtGames Legends Ultimate. They're all that same style. And if you have any issues, you just email him. And I've even emailed him just like, hey, I was thinking about buying this combination. Will it work? And he replies back within a day. He's like, yeah, that's a good one. Like that combination will work. Like he's knowledgeable about this community. So that's good. All right. So looking at the chat for another topic. Let's see. Thanks, first of all, everyone, for hanging out tonight. Looks like we got a pretty happy chat. So it's going to make it definitely enjoyable. This Arcade Will says, actually, Arcade 1-Up probably has limited production to counter Walmart's price drop that caused a depression on their bottom dollar. It works wonders. Now everyone wants to pay full price for hot new cabs. That's a really good point. In fact, a lot of people have recently asked me why I took down my site for finding deals, and I think it's still valid that I took the site down. But the reason why was I was looking at the logs and no one was finding deals for several months. And I felt bad about having a website that people were coming to every single day only to be disappointed. Early on, for a good year, people would come and they'd find deals. Not everyone would find a deal, but there was enough deals every day that I knew the website had value. But then John had said that they learned with working with Walmart that certain regions will have stock and overstock because Arcade 1-Ups sell better in certain regions versus others. So they worked on how they're going to distribute how many cabs. I think for example, when it came to like Space Invaders, every Walmart in the United States got 2. And that was across the board, something like that, right? So, and then there was equal distribution is what I'm trying to say. But that's not very good because there's certain areas that don't sell very well, and so then they had to have an overstock, and then they lowered the price. But recently, the deals from Arcade 1-Up are not necessarily like at a certain location. What we're seeing is like nationwide price drop. Like the Galaga, that's a Walmart.com discount. Or the Legends Ultimate for $99, that's Walmart.com. So everyone in the US had the ability to get in on that deal. And so it's definitely kind of like different than what we've seen before. Now, there's always manager specials, and manager specials would sometimes upset me because you would, like, literally, I was going through Facebook, and Lewis Chambers, he helps put together an Arcade 1-Up Deals and More group on Facebook, and I would go to there and I'd see people say, okay, I found this deal, right? There's a Pac-Man at this Walmart, and it's only $1.99. And so I would ask the person, be like, hey, which Walmart was it? Like, exactly, what's the Walmart number? He's like, oh, it's this Walmart number. And then I would go hit the API, the interface that allows me to see the in-stock price, and the in-stock price would still say $2.99. And then there was another person, same story, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, these dropped in price, and they're now like $99. And I'd look at the inventory there, and it was $99 through the back end API, like the interface. I'm trying to explain it. I'm sorry, I'm using these software development terms you might not be used to, but there's an application programming interface for all websites that allow developers like myself to be able to interact with their database, right? And some of these are publicly documented, and some of them are not. And so in the case of Walmart, they have some public documentation, but I was able to identify how to get inventory information by reverse engineering the iOS app. So the iOS app, I put a man in the middle, and I was able to learn what connections it was making to their Walmart backend, and it would show you an inventory. It even show you like which aisle it was in. So I was leveraging that, and I built a whole bunch of crawlers that would, go through all of every single store, every single product, and ask it every 2 hours. And it took time to roll through all the stores. And if I went too fast, Walmart's API would be like, you're being blocked because you're an excessive user. Anyway, so I put that all together, and what I found was they would have these kind of deals that were available in certain areas, like several stores, like an entire, it's like there was a district manager that said, let's lower the price for all the stores. And that would be true in the API. Like, all those stores would say, yep, it's $99. It's $99. And then there's like manager specials that I'm theorizing this is the case. There's manager specials where like that store was like, we're going to lower it to $99. And that would not show up in the numbers. It was just that store would have the discount. And so what I'm finding now is there is no district level discounts that I'm finding at all. And so the website that I have would no longer produce any deals, because if there were any deals, they were edge case deals, limited store for a day, and then they're done. They're sold out. So really, the Arcade 1-Up Deals and More group that Lewis helps on is a great way to find deals, because people would notify other people. And it's because of real people are actually in the store, and they see the discount, take a picture, and share it with everybody. And so I think if you want to get some deals, join that group. Let's see. Dreamcast Kyle says, love my Attack from Mars pinball. That Nostalgia Solenoid mod is worth it, folks, if you can do it. That's cool. Once you get a few powerhouse multicades having wall of one-ups, seems the less of a thing. Although it is super cool, I see a lot of people wanting to start at least rotating selling old games too. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think people are just limited by space, right? And if you're limited by space, then you might still want to buy the newer one. And if you want to buy the newer one, then you got to get rid of the older one. So what can you do? Someone had told me that they were thinking about just tearing down some of their Arcade 1-Up machines, like literally unscrewing it, putting all the screws in a little package, putting it, stacking them up. They won't take up much room if you put them back almost like in the original box, but maybe you don't have the original box, but you kind of put it in your storage in your house. And then years later, you can reassemble it. That's what someone said. That's an interesting idea. I literally thought about that when someone said that. HobbyHands says, "Hey Justin, you're an IT guy also, right? Did you see other Justin Long Intel video, the former I'm a Mac guy? I'm wondering how much he got paid to switch." I have not seen that. I had not seen. So Justin Long is doing Intel now. That's really interesting. It's kind of like the Verizon "Can you hear me now" guy is now the Sprint guy. And it's like, there was, his contract ran up after all those years, and so the competing company is having that's kind of funny. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's pretty cool. All right, looks like I'm catching up in the chat here. So Rob is asking, when is the new Mortal Kombat dropping? I saw a picture on Facebook. Have you guys seen it? Have you guys seen the picture? It's kind of funny. I saw the picture and then I went and I couldn't find it, and then someone else was posting the picture. They copied and pasted it, but then I couldn't find the original. Anyway, so in the Arcade 1UP Facebook group, there is a picture of someone that has, the new Mortal Kombat Legacy Edition, and it just shows the outer box. And then there's a whole bunch of people going like, "Come on, let's see some videos. Are we going to see some videos of the unit already?" Everyone's really excited to see what it's like. Yeah, I'm really curious too. I'm sitting here trying to find it, see if I can pull up those pictures for those that are not on Facebook. I know a lot of people appreciate that if they're not in those groups. Oh, come on. Does anyone know how to search on Facebook? Like if you like search for Mortal Kombat, is that going to work? I don't even know how to use Facebook. Let me look real quick. I couldn't find it. Sorry, guys. I have a limit to how much I'll pull away my attention from keeping the show going, and I think I've hit that limit, so we're going to move on. If someone's in the chat wants to message me, if they have a link to the Mortal Kombat post, feel free to message me on Facebook, and I'll show it. Let's see what else we got. In 3 years, maybe John D will be doing commercials for the MVSX. That's pretty funny, man. Sailor says, hopefully my Legacy cab will be coming on Tuesday. So how is the MVS coming along? I think he's referring to me. So part of it's my fault, but I've been working with this arcade dealer locally. He owns a store, or I'm sorry, he owns a physical arcade. Thanks, Lewis. Appreciate it. He just messaged me. So I got the play choice. I got a play choice from this local arcade guy, and the NVS. He's doing a little work on it. He's had it forever, but I haven't been pushing him. And so that was kind of the deal. He's like, I'd buy this from him, and he would deliver them eventually. But anyway, I think it's like about a week away. I'll get the big red, and I got a spot in my office for it. And I'm kind of interesting. I'm kind of really debating what to do with it, because so I just bought. So I've had a Neo Geo MVS and the 161-in-1 cart for a while, but I just bought the Shogun, which is like the super gun. I heard it's a pretty decent super gun, and so I'm debating, like, okay, do I use the original MVS hardware to be able to play Neo Geo games like on my TV, and then do I take my Mister, which is the FPGA-based emulation, and put that in the Neo Geo along with the Mr.Cade? Because Mr.Cade's RGB and JAMA out, that could slide right into an actual Neo Geo. So I'd have an actual Neo Geo physical machine, but I'm using the FPGA emulation. You can basically play most of the older computer systems since the 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit of 90s, all the way to about Metal Slug, Neo Geo. So basically everything on a 16.1, like your Namco vertical games, would run on a Mister, plus some CPS 1 games. But CPS, that's going to require extra buttons, and the Neo Geo only has 4. So, but I think I'll eventually sell the Neo Geo that I have and replace it for a Street Fighter, like a real Street Fighter. So I probably don't want to sell the Neo Geo with a Mister in it, because then I have to explain to the next person, so this has a Mister in it. It'd be easier to be like, oh, it's got a 1 slot. It's got a Neo Geo NBS 1 slot. So I'm probably going to put the actual Neo Geo hardware in the Neo Geo that I got. And I talked to my daughter about it. We'll keep it for like a year or something. I was telling her about, hey, we can play all these puzzle games on it. There's a lot of games in the Neo Geo category that we've never played together. And let's beat all the Metal Slugs on a real Neo Geo with a CRT. Daughter got super excited about that. And once we kind of, like 6 months to a year, we've kind of done the Neo Geo thing, we'll sell that arcade cabinet and maybe get a Street Fighter. And then with the Street Fighter, we get that. Then we'll put a Mr. Cade in the Street Fighter, because by then, I think they'll have all the CPS 1 and CPS 2 emulated on the Neo Geo. And like I've said before, like really excited about the Mr. Cade. The way I explain it is they're taking the schematics of the original arcades. They're reverse engineering all the original arcades and then drawing them in a schematic. And then they turn that schematic into code that represents that same schematic, all the logic, all the gates. And you program that into the FPGA. And the FPGA then recreates the circuits. And you can play all the arcade games on it through that. It still takes ROMs, but it's like you're taking a ROM and plugging into a schematic that recreates those arcades, and it has the potential to have really, really good high quality emulation, as long as the person that did the reverse engineering did it really well. And there's all these various ways to reverse engineer arcade boards. One of them is actually like taking the chips apart and taking pictures of the actual, I can't remember, it's like you decap or die. I can't remember the terms for it, but anyway, like there's a few reverse engineer people out there that are doing that level of reverse engineering on some of these systems. And some of those are already well known and documented, so they're through the main project to be able to recreate those schematics. And so when you put that on the Mister, like that machine for that moment of time is essentially that arcade hardware. It's not running anything else on it. There's no system clock. There's no, Ethernet adapter connecting to the internet, checking the time. And, there's no Linux kernel that's like, working through threads or anything like that. It's like just the logic. It's just the circuits. And it has the potential to emulate them perfectly. And of course, if you have computer hardware and a really good software emulation, you could get near perfect or perfect emulation. It's definitely possible. But I definitely want to support this Mr. project as much as I can, because I think what they're doing could potentially be amazing. If this is what they've only done in the last couple of years, imagine what a decade can do for the Mr. project. Okay, anyway, we're going to go back to this MK2. Thank you, Lewis, for sending me. Let me make sure I got the right tab open. Here it is. So someone dropped in the Arcade 1-Up Deals and More, Anthony. This is the picture of the MK cabinet. Yeah. The new Legacy one. There's at least a picture out there. And I haven't heard any word of anyone actually playing it yet, or if it's any good. I'm really excited about it, because why is the Legacy going to be so much better? Well, some of these cabinets, like the Mortal Kombat, for example, was one of their Gen 2 models. And this is going to be one of their later generation machines. That means it's probably going to have a BOE monitor in it. So the aspect ratio is most likely going to be an accurate 4:3 instead of the 5:4 that they originally had. I don't know what chipset they're using. If there's going to be, if it's a dual core or a quad core. Some of their dual cores that they've done on other machines before, I've had a little bit of lag issues. Some people complained about that. I'm concerned that you really do actually need a quad core on all of these machines to even really have a good experience, but I'm not sure if that's certain. The original MK only had a dual core, and I don't think anyone really complained about that. So, and if it's a dual core now, it's probably their Rock chip, and I think the GPU on the Rock chip is a little bit better. Zohar, not this cabinet. That's pretty funny. Yeah, so it's kind of a fun, quick night. So, is that where we end it? Yeah, that's where we end it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Just a quick live stream, is that right? 1 hour is quick these days. And we'll end with a little... Heavy distortion, please. Heavy distortion. That's what you want. Let's see. How about this? We'll do something really quick. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this right, but let's see if I can do it. This is gonna be embarrassing, but. Oh, come on. Hold on. If you bear with me just for 1 second. I got to do this. Hold on 1 second. All right. So this is my much chunkier guitar. Here we go. Ready? We're going to do this real quick. All right. Thank you guys so much. Take care.